So we're going to try to do this. This is the Apple Watch Series 1. I recently bought it. Oh, by the way, how's it going, everybody? RazingHel here. And today we're going to be talking about my general first impressions of the Apple Watch Series 1 after using it for about 10 days. The reason that I got this watch is because I think it's valuable to learn through experience, and there's sometimes there's a price to be paid for that. So that's why I actually went ahead and bought it. By the way, for those wondering what's in the background, that is actually my monitor, and then I have the light on my iPhone on, which creates like this two-directional light. So I'm hoping this ends up being a better picture, but I really can't say in reality how well it'll be. So this is the Apple Watch Series 1, and I got it, like I said before, because I think it's valuable to learn through experience, and I'm willing to pay a price for that. So I guess you can see it right there. And I'm gonna keep my arm out of it for as much as possible because probably not a lot of people want to see that. I've liked it in general, but there have been a few things that I've had a fairly big issue with, and the number one thing is Now Playing. If we go here to this menu, we can bring up Now Playing. This is what is actually, like, this is the most recent thing that's been playing on the iPhone itself. And as you can see, it has like a play pause, there's a rewind, or skip song, and there's also the volume. Now the volume thing is really interesting because through various updates of the watchOS operating system, it has changed. It used to be pretty straightforward. You used to be able to tap, you know, plus and minus on it, and that would adjust the volume. Now you have to tap it once on the screen to open that up, and now you can change the volume like that. So this is the way it used to be, and then it was changed. And I don't really see a reason for why it changed, because you can still adjust the volume like this, which is actually a problem that I have with it. So you can rotate the crown on it. There's a digital crown. It's a round piece on the side. You can rotate it. And what ends up happening for me a lot of the time, especially now that it's winter where I am, you end up wearing coats and stuff, and they rub against it and they rotate it. And that means that you might be listening to something, you move your wrist a little bit, and what will end up happening is it will drastically either increase or decrease the volume by rotating that. And that's a huge problem. Another huge problem that I've had with this is the fact that there is a feature that allows you to raise your wrist to turn the watch face on. And I've had the watch face turn on when I'm not actually raising my wrist, and then it will do stuff like skip songs, play pause, all that kind of annoying, irritating stuff, right? So you can turn it off. You can turn off the ability to wake the watch when you raise your wrist, but it still doesn't actually fix it because you can still turn it on by tapping it. Because this is the Series 1, right? There's no swim mode on it, which means that there is no way to actually turn off the watch face entirely and allow you to only turn it on when pressing a button. Like let's say you press the home key here. That would be something that I would really appreciate, is if there was an option in the Series 1 to only turn on the watch face when you press the home key or the digital crown, preferably the home key, because I really hate the digital crown, to be honest. It's one of those really squishy buttons because you can rotate it in two directions. You can press it in, and you can also rotate it around like clockwise or counterclockwise. So I would prefer it to be the home button, but they don't allow that. So what will be happening, and this has happened to me when I've been like doing dishes and stuff like that. Apparently there's just enough humidity in the air or something where brushing against it, like if you have any sort of sleeve or anything like that, brushing against it will cause it to turn on. And then I've had it rewind what I've done. So I'm not exactly sure if this is a feature where you can rotate your wrist to rewind, because I've looked up this documentation. I can't find it anywhere exactly how you're supposed to be able to rewind and forward, fast forward whatever track it is you're playing. Supposedly, you know, in their documentation, if you look at the PDF for this watch, it says you can do that, but it never actually explicitly tells you how you're going to be capable of fast forwarding or rewinding something. So I've successfully done it, but it wasn't intentional. So I'm not sure if it's rotating the wrist when I'm doing dishes or something, or anything like where you're making motions that are a little bit unusual. But I've had it successfully rewind songs. That is a problem because you can't turn it off. So, you know, these things are not they're first world problems, let's be honest, but they inhibit the functionality of the watch because I can't just continue to wear it throughout, you know, doing various things. Granted, you know, this is not the waterproof version of the watch, so you can't like take it into the shower or take it swimming or anything like that. And most of the time you probably wouldn't want to either. But that also comes with some deficits, and like I said before, one of them is the fact that you can't turn off the tap to turn on display feature. That is going to be permanently available, and it enables the display when you don't want it to. The volume slider, the way that works, because you can rotate the crown to increase or decrease the volume, That also works against me much more than the screen actually turning on. So those are a couple of the huge deficits that I've noticed so far with the watch, and reasons why I guess they're just basically complications that I've had that have made it more difficult for me to enjoy using it. Getting to like more functionally, things that are more functional, I do enjoy being able to simply skip songs, especially from my wrist. That is useful, because normally I'll have to pull up my phone, and this removes one step from that. It has a better step counter on it, I suppose. So if you're somebody who's interested in counting calories and stuff like that, you'll get a much more detailed report through the Apple Watch. So if you're, once again, it's sort of like a fitness band. If you're more into the fitness aspect of this, I would say the Apple Watch can be valuable. I've taken phone calls on it, and it is interesting. It's taken me a while to actually acclimate to the procedure involved, but it works, and I guess if you're in a pinch, it's okay. Another thing I really like about it is that, so you can swipe up from the bottom when you're on the home screen, and it will allow you to turn on a flashlight. So there's a flashlight right here, and that's the flashlight. Now, you might not think that's much, but when you are actually just walking, or let's say you're walking through a dark house, right? You don't have to turn on the lights anymore, because I just turn on the flashlight on my wristwatch and I just beam it around. And you might not think it would be significant enough to actually do a good job of illuminating the area, but it really does, and I've been impressed by that. And that's one of those things, obviously, you don't need a smartwatch for. You could just have a general watch that has a flashlight on it. But I really like that. Another thing that I really like is the ability to ping my phone. So there's a little phone pinger. I'm not going to touch it, but it allows you to automatically ping your phone. It'll make a little noise. So that way you can easily find it. Like, it happens to me so much where, like, I'm using my phone in bed or something, and then I fall asleep using it, and I end up dropping it in the sheet somewhere, and it can be like a hassle to find. So this allows me to pinpoint it very accurately, very quickly, and I do enjoy that. I find that a very functional feature. Obviously, you have to be wearing the watch for it to really make sense, but in general, I've misplaced my phone more than I've misplaced the watch, which may be a little bit unusual when you think about it, but that's the way it's worked. It is nice to have the weather available, so I can easily check what the temperature is going to be outside and stuff like that. But by and large, a lot of the stuff on here has gone unused for me. It's nice to set timers. That was another thing. You can set some really fast timers using it. You can use it as a stopwatch as well. So both of those are very useful to me, but those are things that you really don't need a smartwatch for, right? There are plenty of just like computerized watches out there that will have timer features or will have stopwatch features. So, that's not something you need a smartwatch for, obviously. So by and large, I think like the general assessment of it is pretty accurate. You don't need a smartwatch, but that doesn't mean it isn't cool. And that doesn't mean that it can't be fun to have one. So I guess in like one of the conclusions that I would make here is that if you have the funds available to it and you're interested in experiencing something different, see what the technology is like, it is most certainly worth it, but I would by no means say this is a must-have accessory. Those wondering about some of the more mechanical aspects to it, you can see right back here we have the infrared sensors that allow it to detect things like heart rate or beats per minute. That is, like, once again, one of the more fitness-oriented features of this smartwatch, and as I've mentioned before, that might be one of the reasons that you might consider getting it. The bands themselves appear to be made out of some sort of rubber thing. This feels especially weak. I imagine this is going to be the first point of breakage. Like, as you can see, that's pretty floppy. How the band works is you punch it into one of the holes on the wristwatch, and then you can just tuck it in there like that. It's pretty secure. I've never had it come off. It's not as easy as it could be to take on and off, and I would prefer that they would, at the price that this thing is going for, they would include a more sophisticated watch band, maybe something made out of fabric that's actually breathable. You can take these off, though, by pressing this button right here and sliding it off. So that's how they come off. And then that means you can easily replace them, much easier than a traditional watch, right? And it just clicks in there like that. Yeah, there's not a whole lot else to it. One other thing, by the way, that I did find especially annoying was the fact that there is no calculator built into the Apple Watch. I mean, like, how does that make any sense? There's a calculator built into the iPhone, right? You can swipe up and you tap on the calculator button. It's built right in. You don't have to install any extra apps. The iPad, on the other hand, does not have a calculator. Who knows why? The iWatch, or the Apple Watch, I suppose it's called, also doesn't have a calculator. And this is one of those things that I would really like to have a calculator on, because sometimes there's some really simple sort of mathematical equations you don't want to run through in your head that having a computer right there on your wrist would be perfect for. Now, luckily, you can install a calculator, and here is one such, but it would just be, it just makes so much sense. Like, this is basic functionality for computers, is performing mathematical calculations, and it just doesn't make any sense to me why it would have been so impossible for Apple to sort of display this sort of interface to the consumer. And the really weird thing is because it's a disjointed sort of ecosystem that they have here. You have the iPhone on one hand, it's got a calculator, but nothing else that Apple does. None of the other devices that they have one. And by the way, for those saying like maybe this is just a bad experience with Apple's stuff, yeah, I mean, I'm not somebody who's against Android or anything like that, but at the same time, in general, I trust Apple more than I trust a lot of the manufacturers that make Android stuff. And when it's something as personal as devices that you're putting some of the most confidential information onto, and devices that you're actually wearing around every day, I'm not going to buy something from Huawei, for example. Even Samsung is like, I question some of their stuff, because like you can say all you want about corrupt US businesses and stuff like that, but in general, have you seen the sort of corruption that goes on in any of those more Eastern countries? And that's not to be prejudiced against them. It's just simply taking a look at the business environment and the political environments there, and how much these businesses, especially like Samsung, can influence politicians around there, and maybe even vice versa. But that's why I'm not somebody who's huge into Android, especially. That's one of the reasons why I picked up iOS to begin with, is because I trust the platform a lot more. It's a much more unified platform. Apple, I think, is a lot easier to audit than a lot of these foreign corporations, and that's foreign for me, obviously. But that is generally my rationale behind it, and that's the reason why I've stuck with iOS, despite their shortcomings. So that's the Apple Watch, and those are my opinions on it. This is my new display. I'm using it like sort of a light box here, and with the light coming from there, and then we have light coming from the phone itself, because I'm filming this on a phone. I think it creates a decent picture. We'll see though. I'm still trying this stuff out. I could optionally just go ahead and get light boxes, right? That would make this better, but we'll see how it goes. So, hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.